thigh, upper arm. We need the spines. These are controlling this midsection. The root, we can skip the props. They're just for show. They have no effect on the final mesh. Okay? Once you get everything selected that you want, you hit select here. If we were doing a robe, like I said, we would want all these feet and toes and calves. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that your legs would end up kicking right through the robe as you're running. Also, if your thighs were controlling all the way down to your feet, it would give a really weird, stiff look to everything. Okay? Alright, so once you got all your bones, hit select, and there we go. Now we can start to see some effect. Over here in the parameters, we can go ahead and select different bones, and we can see what their effect is. Okay? This space around the bone here is called an envelope. Anything inside this bubble is controlled by that bone. Okay? This bubble, or envelope as it's called, is three-dimensional, as you can see. Okay? Anything that's red or very dark orange is almost under complete control of the envelope. Anything that's blue, like these down here in the midsection, has very little control by that bone. And the in-between is this yellow orangish color is kind of in between. Okay, if I want to change these envelopes, I can grab one of these handles here, and then I can just drag this sideways, okay? And you can see it's expanding the control. Also, you can see that it's darkening a lot of these vertexes. Okay? That's bringing it under more control of that bone. Basically, the way that the weight or control works is that where then this bone goes, how this bone moves, these vertices will follow it depending on how much weight they have applied to them. So a very heavy weight, then let's say we're in the arm here. With a very heavy weight, these vertexes in the arm are going to move exactly with the arm. If they're kind of only having orange control, that means that another bone is also partially controlling them. They're not going to move as much with that arm, but they're going to kind of move fluidly between the two bones together. We're going to talk about more of this in a second. Okay? So if we go back to the spine here, the upper spine, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this a little bit. You can see that we have a lower ring and an upper ring. We can select either one of these, and we can select any one of these four handles, okay? And we can expand this in or out, okay? You can grab this bottom one also. Also, if I want to select the inner part, let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that you can get a better sense. Do you see this yellow line right here in the middle? This is your actual bone, okay? And then this inner kind of egg shape here, you don't actually want to change. But at the end of these two yellow points here, you'll see that there's the ends of the bones. I don't know if you can see these little gray boxes. When you get it in your own Max, you'll see it with better resolution. If I grab on one of those, I can actually expand this envelope up and down so that I can actually make it taller or longer than it is, not just wider. Okay, so I can really change the shape to a circle or a really long oval, eggish kind of shape. Okay, so now we can get a sense for that. Also, through this whole thing, make sure that you have edged faces turned on. If you don't have edge faces turned on, you can see that you won't be able to see the vertexes. Okay, if you can't see the vertices, then it's going to be really hard to see exactly what you're doing. You'll just see these colors. They're kind of random. F3 gets you into wireframe mode also. Sometimes you need that to see kind of inner vertices. Okay? And that pretty much takes us through the first part. I'm going to go ahead and start part 2 now in just a second. Okay? Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the armor skinning tutorial for 3ds Max 7 for use mainly in Fate. We're going to continue learning about the skinning modifier as we continue to work on this banded mail and completely skin it so that we can use it for Fate. Okay, so let's launch into this again here. So we were learning about how the envelopes have influence over everything around them. So the colors here. Red means that this bone, which we have selected, which is root spine 2, is having almost total control over those vertices. Vertices that are blue, like these ones down in the midsection here, have very little control. Okay, and these ones in the middle are kind of in between, like about 40 to 70% is going to have an orange color like this. Also notice that as you get closer to the outside of the envelope, we have less control than when we're closer to the center of where the bone is. Over here on the right is, in the control panel, is where we select our bones, okay? We can select any of these bones, and as I go through them, you can see that we can see how they're affecting the mesh around them. Now what we're going to do in this process is see how good of a job that the skinning modifier did of getting all the vertices in the entire mesh under the control of the bone that's logically it should be controlled by. Okay, what we're going to be looking out for is that all these envelopes are overlapping each other a little bit, and that also no vertices are isolated. That's the one thing that we're going to be most concerned about, and I'll show you a few little tricks for figuring that out in the end. Okay, so here we are on root spine. This is, if I go ahead and take a look at this, this is this top blue spine right here. There's another one beneath it, another one beneath that. Then the pelvis. In the center here is the root, and then we get into the other bones that you can see pretty clearly. Forearm, hands over here. The head we won't need to be worrying about. Okay, so let's go up through the bones. This is the next spine down. You can see it's getting the midsection pretty well. Let's rotate it around. You can see it's got a pretty nice control. It's overlapping into this chest area, overlapping a little bit down into the pelvis. That's what we want. Okay, go to the bottom spine, and we're getting everything there pretty well controlled. And you can see it's getting all the way down into the very bottom of the mesh there. Okay, next one up is the pelvis. Okay, and there we can see it's getting a little bit of control over the thighs. And then if we go ahead and select the thighs, we can see that it's getting a pretty good control. Now look at these extreme vertices over here on the edges. This is the kind of thing where you'd be worried about that maybe the envelope didn't quite get. For example, let's say that this envelope were actually a little bit smaller. Look at what just happened. This vertex over here now is not under the control of any bone because it's so far off from the mesh. The thigh is the only thing that could have gotten it under its envelope. Nothing else is going to be able to. So this vertex would be isolated. What happens to isolated vertices